In today's episode, I will not be focusing as much on tips and strategies and those practical things that you're used to hearing from me, but instead, we're going to focus on something that is much more important. And those are the voices inside your head, the imposter syndrome, and the story we keep telling ourselves that is actually stopping us from telling the real story to our listeners, to our peers, to our clients, to anyone who is willing to listen. So consider this episode a cornerstone of your podcasting journey going forward because no tactics, no strategies will work unless you have the foundations in place. And as most things in life, everything starts with the space between your ears, with what's happening inside your mind. So let's try to unpack it together and see what we can do to make our stories shine and to not be afraid of sharing them. This is Say Yes to Podcasting, where solopreneurs learn how to start podcasts that attract their ideal clients and do the marketing for them. I'm your host, Anja Lordanic. Let's launch your show. It is no secret that I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I mostly listen to self development, business podcasts, something that will help me get better as a business person. And I try to be as present while listening to those conversation and those solo episodes of others. And what inspired this podcast episode of mine is actually a quote I heard on another business podcast, and it literally stopped me in my tracks. I remember rushing to my phone to write it down and to mull it over, to think about how I will explain this concept either on LinkedIn, in my newsletter, or in a podcast episode because it is so, so, so important. The quote goes as follows: "The mess that we walk through becomes the medicine we give to others." And this quote was said by Macy Robison, who is a thought leadership strategist. She's a story brand expert, and she's someone whose presentation style I really like. And she also has a soothing voice, which also helps. So when she said the mess that we walk through becomes the medicine we give to others, I had to write it down and think about what this means to me. What this means to me right now, what this will mean to me in 5 or 10 years from now, and consequently, how this quote, how this way of thinking can help you as well in your podcasting journey and in your business journey as well. When Macy mentioned the mess that we went through, the adversity we overcame, and how all of that can serve the people we are trying to help today, she was mostly referring to teachers, coaches, mentors, consultants, and how the experiences that we sometimes feel embarrassed about or uncertain of, they're actually the very things that make our stories valuable. We shouldn't shy away from sharing our own stories, even if they're messy, even if we made some mistakes in the past. If you listen closely, in most of my podcast episodes, I keep on roasting myself and mentioning the mistakes I've made in the past, which makes me even more equipped to help you today. Because when you experience something firsthand, those lessons stick. And I know that you know what I mean. So, this way of thinking actually applies to any of you if you just want to help people in any way, if you keep serving people in any capacity. Your story is not just a story, it is not something you use to fill the silence, to share just for the sake of it because it's trendy. It is, and it is a bit embarrassing to say this way, it's a bit cheesy, but your story is really a bridge that connects you to your listeners, you and your clients, you and your peers. And that bridge is made of vulnerability, transparency, trust, openness, and all of those things are truly important if we want to establish any kind of connection between us and other people. And especially in this, I will say, day and age of AI, what is more valuable than one human story? No AI can even come close to the experiences you've lived, to the lives you've touched. And as I'm sharing all of this, I realize that this episode is different compared to my other ones. But as I said in the intro, I believe it is important, if not one of the most important episodes I will ever record. Why do I believe that to be true? Well, audio as a medium, as a means of sharing our knowledge, expertise, our experiences, is extremely revealing. And that is a good thing, even though it might sound a bit scary at first. So, whenever you share your stories through this audio medium, whether or not you already have a podcast, your story is one of the most important things, something that your listeners will relate to, or if they don't relate to it, they will realize, okay, her story, his story is so interesting. And now I feel like I know him or her that much better. And I feel more connected to them. Even though we might not live in the same place, we might not have had the same or similar experiences, but we do feel more connected to that person. And thanks to that, we trust them more. And I know what you might be thinking right now. You might be thinking, but my story is not big enough. It is not memorable. I have never saved a person's life. I've never delivered a baby in a car. I've never gone bungee jumping. And it is a shame that we often fall into this trap of thinking our story needs to be huge, heroic, Hollywood style blockbuster in order to be worth it, in order to make an impact on another person. And here I am sharing all of this just to tell you that your listeners, your podcast listeners, don't need your story to look or sound like a movie. They just need your story to be yours. They just need it to be real. And as I said a couple of minutes ago, audio is revealing. They will see if your story is real or you're trying to appeal to the masses or to your future clients. And it is all very obvious, for better or for worse. So, when you share the moments that shaped you, no matter how small they are, that thing that happened in elementary school, that encounter in your first year of business, that referral you got out of the blue, it allows people to connect with you. And it is no secret that connection breeds trust. Let's mention a practical example, and I will stick to podcasting examples because that's why we're here. So think about it. Have you ever listened to a podcast, whether you wanted to be entertained or informed, and felt like you really knew the host as a person? If so, I'm pretty sure that wasn't because of their super polished intro or a perfect script or a beautiful way of presenting their public speaking skills. You felt that way because they were human. They shared something so human about themselves that you found yourself in them. They were open, they were transparent about something they did or did not do in the past, something that they regret, something they wish they did differently. And maybe they were even, as Macy said, a little messy. And that is exactly why you connected with them, not because they were perfect or pretending to be perfect. Now, it would be super awkward if I were to sit here and tell how important it is to share your story and not mention my own story. And this is something I've struggled with a lot because I want to be as precise and as to the point as possible to help you out, to not waste your time. And for the longest time, I felt like it wasn't my place to share too much of my story. But then later on, as time went by and as I consume content from different people on a daily basis, I realized that yes, stories are not only a nice to have, they're crucial. It is important to share a piece of yourself with every episode, with every text post you share, with any kind of content you share. If you want to connect with people, if you want to get great fit clients or perfect fit clients coming to you. So, I will share a tiny puzzle from my podcasting journey story that illustrates this example perfectly. And that is something that was a stumbling block for the longest time for me. So, some of you know that I started my podcasting journey in Croatian. I was a co host of a show in Croatian, my native language, for 2 years. And that was such a great and fun and fulfilling experience. But when I went to venture out on my own and launch my own podcast, I knew that I wanted to do it in English, in my second language, obviously. But for months and months, I kept thinking to myself, I'm not a native English speaker. Will people take me seriously? Will my message even land? There are so many more educators out there whose native language is English. Well, isn't it obvious that people will flock to them rather than to me, even though we might be sharing the same message? And that thought held me back for far too long. But what I realized is this: there are listeners out there who need to hear exactly what I have to say in the way that I can say it, even if it is in my second language. My message, what I'm sharing, the knowledge I'm sharing, might be more helpful to them than if they were to hear the same message from someone else. And it goes both ways because I'm well aware that not everyone is everyone's cup of tea. And that is the way it should be. I will quickly go back once again to this sentiment of audio being revealing. And I'm so glad that is the case because it helps people filter out themselves. You've heard this before. When you have great copy and it is very clear, your sales page, for example, is created exactly for one type of person. And if they find themselves in your words, they will be ready to buy. The same goes with audio, and it's even easier and more natural, more organic. I want people who turn on this podcast to feel empowered, motivated, ready to keep on listening or ready to take action, anything of that nature. Because we're all in different parts of our journeys, right? And if someone tunes in and realizes in the first couple of minutes, no, this is not my cup of tea. This is not for me. I would rather tune out. That is completely fine. And I've come to terms with that. Because the last thing I want is for someone to feel bad or worse off after listening to something I shared. I would rather you walk away and find someone else whose message you resonate with more. And this is something I wholeheartedly want for you too. Maybe your first language is English and you will launch your podcast in English. That is perfect. But I'm sure you have a different stumbling block than mine. Maybe you're insecure about your voice. Maybe you don't have a lot of public speaking experience. Maybe you feel like you're all over the place. Maybe you think that you will not be able to stay consistent and then you will resent yourself. Those are the most common things I hear in the podcasting space. And each one of us has a personal responsibility to work on whatever is holding us back. I can sit here and keep on motivating you and helping you and sharing my story, my experience, what held me back for years or months, in the hopes that you will not waste that much time thinking about what is holding you back and letting that stop you from launching your podcast. That is it. That is the only thing I can do for you today, and the rest is on you. Since I like to leave you with something practical in every episode, I will do the same today. I will share a couple of quick tips how you can turn your story into podcast episodes. What you can do now to start sharing your stories more openly and to see that that is the way we can connect with people. And when I say storytelling or story sharing, I don't mean crossing personal boundaries, sharing something you're not completely comfortable sharing. I mean sharing something that is related to what you're helping your clients with. How a story of yours can motivate your clients to do better. How an anecdote from your past can help your clients overcome something today. This was the point of my story from a couple of minutes ago. Something that held me back from launching my own podcast was the fact that I was not a native English speaker, and I'm still not. And that might inspire you to look at your own insecurities, that, by the way, you're probably the only one who is noticing them, and try to work on them one step at a time. So, when it comes to your own podcast episodes and turning your story, weaving your story into your podcast episodes, you can start as small as possible. You can think of one moment from your business life or from your personal life that you went through, that you survived, despite doubts or fears you had. And ask yourself, how does this lesson connect with what I teach my clients or the value I want to provide to my clients or my audience, my listeners in general? And if you're feeling extra motivated, you can take your phone, open up a voice memo app, and record a quick 3-minute episode talking yourself through that moment as if you're talking to a client or a listener. Just you and your thoughts. No one else has to hear it, ever. And if you want some extra support, someone who will listen to your story on the other side, someone who will hold your hand, I would love to help you out and help you share your story in its purest form to connect with your clients and your listeners. The only thing you need to do is click the first link in the show notes and see if that is something that might be interesting for you. When you see what's in there, you will realize why I'm offering this to you. That is an offer that a lot of my clients love and something that helps them share their story and their expertise in the most natural way possible. You will see what I mean. So, to wrap up this motivational or philosophical episode, I really want to see you sharing your struggles, your failures, your hiccups, the messy parts, as Macy said, because these are the moments that make you relatable and make you different from the next person. And not only that, but those stories, those messy stories, are exactly what make your podcast truly valuable to your listeners. Those stories are what make your listeners keep coming back. And when it comes to podcasting, there is no point in waiting until everything is perfect. Learn from my example, please. Don't worry if your story sounds ordinary or silly or embarrassing. It is important to show up because imagine if people you admire, people you like listening and learning from, didn't show up. So share the lessons you've learned, share your stories, build in public, and your people will come. And if you stuck with me to the very end, thank you. I truly appreciate the fact that you decided to spend this time with me. And I hope that this episode will inspire you to share a quick story, if not with others, at least with yourself. And you will realize how valuable it can be to others as well. Thank you again, and I will see you next week.